Does walking into the RV dealership feel like walking into a lion's den blindfolded holding a steak? Does getting ripped off get you madder than a three-legged dog trying to bury a turd on an icy pond? Well, stay tuned, because today we're talking about the dirty little secrets the dealership doesn't want you to know and the mistakes you need to avoid. Welcome back to the Camping Loop. All right, guys, so let's set the background here a little bit. You've done all the research, you and your wifey, you decide to walk into an RV dealership only to be greeted by a salesman with a grin ear to ear, thinking he just won the lottery. But in reality, they're just plotting to take your lunch money and your life savings. They may offer you a bad cup of coffee that tastes like bad decisions and regrets, all the while trying to size you up and asking questions like, what brings you in here today? Or maybe, what do you want to keep your monthly payments at? This is their way of sizing you up to try to make as much money for themselves and, frankly, the dealership. They'll probably tell you about end-of-the-month deals or a low interest rate for the first couple years, or maybe even offer you a hot dog and a soda. Now, my first piece of advice is take it. Nobody wants to negotiate on an empty stomach. And number two piece of advice, make sure you have your own financing or pre-approval from your own bank. Now, let's face it, folks, a lot of these dealerships aren't in the RV business, they're in the finance business. They want you to fill out a credit application so they can bounce it around from bank to bank, all the while trying to figure out how much APR they can add onto it and still keep you in your monthly payment. They offer ridiculously long terms, 20, 30 years sometimes, which honestly ends up doubling or tripling the cost of your RV. Knowing exactly how much you're approved for, your interest rate, and the length of the loan puts you back in the driver's seat. Trusting the dealership to give you the best loan possible is literally like trusting a raccoon to babysit your sandwich. Next piece of advice, don't buy new. Maybe try to find something that's like 1 or 2 years old and already has the kinks worked out. Now, we all know that RVs are mass produced, and I'm sure we've all heard the horror story about how the neighbor's new camper was full of nothing but problems. Well, that's where it's nice for them to have the headache for the first year or two, get all the kinks worked out, deal with all the warranty information. Then by the time you're looking at the rig, everything's worked out and all you got to do is enjoy it. And think of some of the money you're going to save on depreciation alone. Some of these units lose 20, 25% the minute you pull them off the lot. So why not let somebody else eat that? So again, avoid the temptation of a shiny new object and get yourself something really nice, used, 1 or 2 years old. That way, the only thing breaking the bank are the cost of the travels. Next up on the list, watch out for those extended warranties. Now, once you and your salesman have gone back and forth and finally negotiated a deal, most likely you're going to be introduced to the finance manager and you're going to go in his office to sign your life away. Now, this is the guy that's going to try to sell you all sorts of things. Maybe high gloss protection on the exterior, Scotchgard the interior, or maybe just a basic extended warranty. But honestly, here's the kicker. They're typically successful because of the way they present the price to you. They'll say things like, well, it's only going to add $5, $10, $15 a month onto your payment, and then you're protected forever. In reality, however, these things typically cost thousands of dollars, and you may not be covered for what you thought. Most, not all, warranties, but most will have somewhere in the fine print that you can only have the unit fixed at the location where you bought it. Or, are you thinking about buying a full-time and doing that? Well, they also say limited use only, so that's about as useful as a chocolate teapot. And honestly, have you guys ever heard some of the horror stories at some of these repair facilities, Camping World, about getting your rigs fixed? You might be waiting the entire season, waiting on parts. Next up on the list, don't fall for the old bait and switch trick. And what I mean by that are two different things. First, don't let the dealer waste your time by telling you the unit that you found online and researched already is all of a sudden gone when you show up to the dealership. But conveniently, they had the perfect model they just had to show you. And secondly, only buy a unit that you've looked at and inspected yourself thoroughly. Don't buy a floor model unit and then fall for the same thing out back. The one that's sitting out back in the rain for months could be leaking, or maybe it's got some trim broken, or the radio's not working. Could have some sort of issue. Again, guys, only buy a unit that you've looked at or looked at by somebody who knows what to look for. And certainly don't take delivery of your new rig if there's a checklist that still needs to be completed, or maybe something's broken or not working properly. Really, as excited as you are, you're probably better off just saying no to the delivery that day. You'll come back in a couple days, maybe next week when it's ready to go. You got a lot better chance at a dealership having your issue addressed immediately than you will be leaving with a rig and then coming back on the promise of, we ordered the parts. A couple quick other things to keep in mind while you're at the dealership. Don't be pressured. Don't be pressured to sign anything. And if you do, keep in mind that majority of service contracts or purchase orders, they can be canceled within 72 hours. And certainly, don't let them pressure you with you got to put a deposit today, you got to put one down today, or it's going to be sold crap. Make sure it's definitely the unit you want before you're giving away a deposit. Now keep in mind, RV dealers, they use all sorts of tricks and tactics to get your money and get the best for themselves. Now hopefully you found a couple of these tips at least helpful, and if you did, go ahead and hit that there button down below. It's free, doesn't cost you anything. Well, next week we got a bunch of maintenance tips coming. We got to get that Rockwood winterized, we got to get that put away, I got a bunch of stuff to do to the Coleman. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you then.